Hello everybody, welcome to episode number 8 of the Real Talk Real Estate Show. We're standing in front of one of my 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom listings over in Cathedral Heights at 3900 Watson Place. And before we go on the balcony and actually start talking about today's topic, I want to let you know we're talking to my sellers out there who are thinking, when's the best time of year to list my property? So why don't we head on in and have that discussion.
Washington, D.C. real estate. Fiercely competitive and always changing. Where people from all corners of the world come to make their mark. So on this show, we get real. Real about what actually matters. Where I show you what's behind the curtain. And you get a new perspective. Because having the knowledge and insight means the difference between winning and losing. Welcome to Real Talk Real Estate.
So here we are. You've made the decision. The day has come. It's time to sell. And you've called me. We've had the discussion. Hey, it's time to go. The next question I always get is, John, when is the best time I should list my property? What's the best time of year? And I go back a step further. I say, what you're really asking me is when is the highest likelihood that I'll encounter the right buyer that's going to be interested in my property so I maximize the opportunities that I have? That's what you're really saying when you ask the question about timing. And to that, I'll start by saying, in Washington, D.C., we live in a very transient area. People are coming and going 12 months out of the year. I promise you, I've sold houses the day before Christmas. I've sold properties in the middle of summer. 12 months out of the year, it's happening. So you can't apply those timing rules that you hear about. Spring market, summer slump, fall, kids are back in school, winter, holiday slowdown. You hear all that stuff. Lots of articles are written pertaining to timing, but in reality, you can't take those rules and apply it to our area. A place like Florida, where they have a buying season and a slow season, absolutely. So to make a blanket rule about the best time of year would not only be inaccurate, but it just would be irresponsible because there are different times that are appropriate for different properties. So that's the first question about timing, but I'll give you a tip. If you want to know my insight, my expert opinion on timing. If you're thinking about selling, true, the spring market in our area, which really we could talk about happens in a window of time, but think Cherry Blossom Festival. When the weather starts to break. That's the beginning of the spring market in Washington, D.C. And if you're being smart about it, I'll tell you what, you're a seller, get ahead of that curve. Because you're absolutely right. If you told me that the most buyers, the highest volume of transactions are occurring, the most buyers are out there in that spring market, March, April, May, kind of sliding into June, you're right. If that's something we want to look at, but I'll tell you another thing. There are the most amount of sellers at that exact same time too. And what's going to drive value? What's going to drive your sale in a positive direction? Supply and demand, right? So here's the trick. There are a lot of buyers that get anxious. Right after the new year, they say, this is our year to buy something. And they start searching the internet, they start looking around, but there's still snow on the ground. The spring market's months away. But the sellers that are out, that got a jump in January and February, like call it late January, early February, they are not competing with a lot of other properties because everyone's waiting to put theirs on in the spring, yet there are a ton of buyers out there looking. So some of my best selling moments have happened in late January, early February when the inventory is super low and the buyers are out there anxiously trying to get ahead of the spring market. So if you want a tip to get an edge, that might be something worth looking at. But again, you cannot apply just a seasonal rule to an area like Washington, D.C., where people are coming and going. So that's the first thing about timing. But number two, we hear a lot about the election cycle. Every 4 years, it's like a joke. Sellers tell me, hey, we're going to wait for the new administration. We don't know what's going to happen with the market, so we're just going to hold off. In reality, and we've looked at this through data, and I've been in this market 11 years, the election will change hundreds of jobs. We're talking a couple hundred people coming, a couple hundred people going. So for an area that sees thousands of transactions a month, just think about what impact that really makes on what's going to happen. In reality, it's not much. It's something, it's a good talking point, but it's not something that really moves the needle. So waiting before or after an election won't really make a huge impact. What would be something more significant with the markets, and we can get into that, but at the end of the day, just a change in administration, Democrat, Republican, won't matter. So the election cycle thing, I wanted to address as not something that I would be too concerned with if I was thinking about selling now. So here's the next thing about timing, and this kind of wraps up the conversation that I think most sellers like to have with me pertaining to timing. You know, you pick a date, and again, I would strongly recommend going with what works for you and your schedule, because again, we can sell properties 12 months out of the year, and if that early January, February window doesn't work for you, we shoot for April, May, that's fine, we'll be successful there too. It's more about doing the right stuff, not picking the perfect date on the calendar. But you do have to pick some type of date. Make it work for your schedule. Here's what I'll recommend as it pertains to timing. Do yourself a favor and just plan on whatever you got to do to prepare the property to take twice as long as you think it will. Because it will. If you do the right stuff, it's going to take time. And check back in earlier episodes, I mentioned how to get top dollar for your home. I mean, there's tricks you can implement, such as cleaning up, getting rid of belongings, putting stuff in storage, doing some painting, that stuff is going to take a long time. So don't stress yourself out. Don't wait till 2 weeks before that launch date to even start that process. Initiate that months in advance. If you do that and you methodically go through the process, circle a date on a calendar and meet that target and work with your agent in the meantime on the marketing, you're going to be successful. And time of year will matter so much less than the fact that you did the right stuff at the right times and it worked for your schedule. And in closing, once your house is listed, I strongly encourage you to take some time away from your house, because I mentioned this in earlier episodes, but it's going to turn into a product, not your home. It's not going to be convenient. Selling a house sucks in a lot of ways, just for the day-to-day. You're going to have people marching through your house at all times of the day. If you have pets, kids, it's very disruptive. So don't plan on nice long dinner discussions and that sort of thing. You're going to get interrupted. So pick a time of year that you can also maybe take some time to step away. Give us a week, take that vacation, and we will be successful. So that kind of wraps up this discussion about timing. I hear about it all the time, but I just want you to take away those few key points. Time of year matters a lot less than doing the right stuff, and picking something that works for you is a lot more important than picking some arbitrary date that you were told in some magazine you read is the right time to sell. So until next time, we'll talk some more about this. Thanks.